over on ITV1 and as a box set on ITVX, we have a new drama series called The Lady, and here's a clip.
As time passes, speculation is growing. Could Jane Andrews have killed the man she loved?
The real question we must consider is why she committed these violent acts.
She spent so much time with the royals. She started to think she was one of them.
I don't want an ordinary life.
We're 3 days into a national manhunt. A woman can't just disappear.
What's wrong with me, Mum? Why can't I ever just be happy?
Well, fairly topical and of the moment, I'd say, with Sarah Ferguson in the news, as she is. However, I have watched a couple of episodes of this already, and I'm quite captivated. In as much as, I'm going to go back to the story in a minute, but it takes a little while to get to Sarah Ferguson. There's a little bit of a story initially that centres around this lady called Jane Andrews, who essentially becomes her dresser. But everyone remembers that polka dot outfit, I think, that was in the news. And this is kind of how she blasts into the room. Nothing like how I'd imagine, which just certainly doesn't particularly look like her other than the ginger hair. But I mean, apart from that, she doesn't particularly look like her. Probably as obnoxious as she could be. But she sort of bursts onto the scene. And it's about as ridiculous as that, in my opinion. But in equal measure, completely captivating, because this is based on a true story, but it's loosely, and at the beginning it comes up and says, you know, a lot of it's been made for the drama. So you kind of have to separate the fact from the fiction here. But essentially, this is based around, as I say, this girl called Jane Andrews. And it jumps to and fro a little bit. But you see her as a young girl in quite sort of a depressed area of the north, just desperate to get out and wanting to do something different, break the mould, if you like. And everyone's saying to her, you'll never get anywhere, you know, better than us. And she just had aspirations like so many youngsters do, and she was really determined, and that was really commendable, really. And she applied for a job at the palace for Sarah Ferguson's dresser, and she got the job. And you see her coming to London. Her parents are, I mean, she's I should point out here, she does suffer from mental health issues, and that is, you see that quite quickly in the first episode, the troubles and the concerns, and we understand that she's tried to take her life on one occasion previously, and we learn to say that quite quickly. But her parents are just, you can just see, I think the parents play such a brilliant role. They're just so happy for her. They just can't believe this envelope that's turned up from Buckingham Palace. You know, why are they writing to you? And down she goes to London to be interviewed. And it doesn't look like she's going to get the job. She doesn't seem to have the qualifications. The CV doesn't show much. And she sits there with a northern accent and saying, you know, yeah, but I did get a distinction, but it was only a foundation course. And, you know, she wasn't particularly selling herself, but just completely natural. And the people interviewing her were arguably, one of them was okay, but one of them was a little bit sniffy. And then Sarah Ferguson blasts in the polka dot dress. And she said, why are you here? And she says, Jane says, I'm better suited to a palace. And that's kind of where she had her aspirations. She felt she should be growing up in a palace. And you see her just living her real best life. But it jumps to and fro, because the opening scenes of this, you see somebody who's murdered. And Jane Andrews, and this is what I mean, it jumps to and fro. It's not difficult to follow, but it jumps to and from past and present. She becomes quite close to Sarah Ferguson, but is eventually let go. And she is sentenced to a life in prison for the murder of her boyfriend. And so you see this crime being investigated alongside kind of her life as growing up, doing this amazing job. And as I say, the mental health aspect is quite important to this. But you get to know her, and there is I think the part of Jane, you really get to see kind of what she's like, what makes her tick, her, you know, ruthless kind of want to get to where she needs to get to, but also what she's wrestling with. And it's kind of really sad that it ended up like this. Of course it is, you know, someone's died, but she had every opportunity. And was this the best opportunity? Was it good that she saw this, incredible life she could have? Did that play a part in it? Did it give her access to a world that she couldn't really, most of us, couldn't cope with? So, as I say, you kind of write from the 1980s, right up to the aftermath in the 2000s, and I find it quite captivating, but it does jolt around everywhere. I don't think it's brilliant. I just found it very, very interesting, and I think that it's very, very topical. What did you think, Ian?
Yeah, it's had very mixed reviews. It has to be said, and some accusations of it sort of in bad taste, or it's the timing is inappropriate. Mckenna-Bruce, who was the star of Agatha Christie's Seven Dials, and I thought she was great in that, and that got kind of not great reviews. She's superb as Andrews, I think, really good, and especially episode 1 where, yes, she gets the job, she goes to work in Buckingham Palace, and just the rest of the staff are so horrifically snobby about her shoes and her accent. It's just awful. And she's sort of thinking, maybe I shouldn't be here. And as you say, it's the parents are almost kind of pressuring her to stick with it. That's Claire Skinner and Dan Ryan from The Bay. Good to see them. You got Philip Glenister as the police officer investigating the murder and looking for Andrews when she disappears. So, yeah, another criticism has been that Natalie Dormer, who plays Sarah Ferguson, kind of takes over because it's such a larger-than-life performance. But that's the impression we have of Fergie. That's why initially people really liked her, because she wasn't like the other royals. She was like this really kind of, almost caricature, kind of larger-than-life character. But I got to say, I enjoyed episode 1, and I think I will keep watching it. I mean, of course, everyone's fascinated by, especially a murder linked to the royals. It's the royal soap opera, isn't it? And people criticise The Crown for sort of, not being believable, but it's the royal soap opera that everyone loves. And I do think, and particularly Mckenna-Bruce, I think she's terrific in this. And I think it's worth a look. Don't always believe the critics. Have a look and decide for yourselves.